Vision, where bad ideas get legalized and the truth will set you free. Trento Vision is hosted by Tom Trento. Tom can be reached at 561-419-5533 or Tom at TrentoVision.tv. Listen and watch every weekday from 4 to 6 p.m. on AM 1370 WRNA and TrentoVision.tv. Now, let's get a peek at Tom's view of the world. Here's Tom Trento.
It never fails. It never fails. It never fails. Here we go. We're here 2 hours early, but we're always rushing at the last second to get the audio just right. I don't know. But, and we do need the audio right because we have an audio extravaganza for the followers of TrentoVision.tv on the simulcast video side of our national security radio here in cloudy Boca Raton, Florida. It hasn't been cloudy for a while. And on the radio side, we are coming at you in 2 digital media modalities. You can watch us on TrentoVision.tv. That means on your internet, on your iPhones, on your iPads, on your iHeart radios. You can't hear on iHeartRadio. You can't see, but you can hear. Download iHeartRadio. Go to South Florida, WNN. Okay. We're getting the technical stuff worked out. So everybody can hear and see, I'm fine. I hear myself good. And Mike, you good? All right, and it's a beautiful Thursday. It's 12/13/12. That won't happen for another 400 years, but no problem. No, what are you doing? There we go. That won't happen because the world's ending on December 21st, according to the Mayan calendar. The Mayans still exist. There's, I think, about 1 million of them or so, a couple of million. They're floating around in Mexico and Guatemala and Honduras and a few different places. They're not really worried about the world ending, so we shouldn't either. We're going to have to get on with the show here. What we have today is we're patched in. We have the, what's that tapping? We have the TrentoVision G42 satellite. We launched it last night up over the Atlantic, and we're going to use our G42 satellite to Skype in from the Gaza border our good friend Mark Kohlberg on his Experience Israel briefing tour. As soon as we get settled, we'll go to Mark. And if we, in 1 more minute, if we can't do this, we're just moving ahead. We just have to deal with it as it is right now. So what we have for you folks today, very exciting format for the show. We have, as you know, the United West back in February of 2011. 10 of us went on a national security briefing to Israel, hosted by the international security expert Mark Kohlberg. And Mark brought 10 of us on a investigative briefing into Israel, specifically dealing with homicide, suicide bombers, and how the Israeli government, the infrastructure, the citizens, how everybody dealt with the various intifadas. Hopefully, but that won't happen again. But the way the world is moving, it looks like that may happen again. But rest assured, Israel is ready for any and all eventualities. But Mark puts these briefings together several times a year, and right now he has a group of Americans on this international trip to Israel, and they have been studying in Israel, and we are very privileged to have a dialogue and a presentation from Mark Kohlberg, coming out of an area close to Gaza, from what I understand. Are we ready, guys? Everybody ready? Okay. Let's bring Mark in, and we'll get started with our program. We pushed it pretty hard for folks to come and listen and come and watch. So, Mark, are you there? This is Tom and CJ, Mark and Mike in the studio. Go full screen on this.
I'm here, Tom. How are you doing?
Hello, hello. It's only 7 minutes after 3 here, but we know it's 7 minutes after 10 o'clock for you guys. You had a long day, I guess, huh?
Well, it's been a long couple of days, I think.
Okay, well, we are ready for you. As I understand, we're going to take a look at your briefing. You raised a fascinating question that I know you're going to be dealing with. Has the Iron Dome helped save Gaza? Not Israel, but Gaza. And we'll get a briefing for all the viewers of Trento Vision and WNN 1470. We'll get a briefing on what the heck is going on over there just 3 weeks after a very vicious and very tactical war occurred. So it's all yours, Mark.
Well, we've got a delegation here. The law enforcement people, delegates can't be interviewed for professional reasons, but we have other people with us. We've got Barbara Dormat, who's with us. We've got Fred, and we've got Candy, who is hosting us probably about 7 kilometers. It's about 3 miles from, plus minus, from the border with Gaza. Which I can tell you, we went around today with Candy. We picked some tomatoes, if you would like. We drank some tea. We went through fields in a beautifully serene and probably very deceptive scenario in the area. But it was absolutely beautiful. The weather was raining in Sderot, but when we came closer towards Sder, where we are, the weather sort of became much better. We're talking to you right now from Candy. In a minute, I'll pass this on to Candy and then Fred and Barbara. But certainly quiet, no more red alert sirens for the meantime. And we are in the presence of the deputy mayor of the region here, of Sder, and the Eshkol region, which you've probably heard of over there. You've probably heard that on the news a couple of times. A lot of rocket fire lands here in the Eshkol region. And the deputy mayor said to me, I asked him how long does he think the ceasefire is going to last? And he said probably until the end of 2013, which is amazingly optimistic. It's a year that'll give the Hamas time to rebuild and regroup and re-strategize. I'm going to, Tom, with your permission, just say on behalf of the law enforcement here that I've been talking to them. They are not allowed to be interviewed. But I think that their perspective, and they're all listening in, by the way, but they can hear you and they can hear me. Their perspective has changed somewhat since Sunday night on their arrival in Israel, and perhaps Barbara and Fred would elaborate a little bit on that. So I'm going to just pass you over to Candy, who's hosting us, if that's okay with you, or do you want to ask something else in the meantime?
No, we'll go to Candy, and for your folks that are there, they can go online to trentovision.tv, and they can monitor this. They're going to have to mute their audio, or otherwise there'll be feedback. But they can see the picture, they can hear you speaking, and they can hear us speaking through your computer. So if they go to trentovision.tv, they can watch this whole thing. We're broadcasting it back to Israel right now. And if people want to get in and speak with Mark or some of the others there, you can give us a call at 888-565-1470. What does that say, CJ? I can't read it. Just tell me what it says. Hang on, Mark. What does it say?
It's a question for them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, we got some questions for you guys. But I should tell everybody, Mark, all the listeners and viewers, that your briefing tours, your Experience Israel briefing tours, are primarily for the law enforcement community in the United States to be exposed to some of the Israeli tactics, techniques, and procedures, and thus the reason why some of these folks who are involved in law enforcement here can't appear on the show today. But we know Fred Perry can, because I just saw him in the when we were setting up the Skype. Fred Perry's a good friend of ours from Florida. We'll hear from him in a little bit. But yeah, let's have Candy on, and we'll start from the beginning. I think this will be a fascinating hour.
Well, yes, Candy.
Hi, everybody. I'm very happy to be online with you. We have gone to a lot of effort to accommodate the people over here. I must say the farmers will be really, really glad because they brought the rain along with them. We haven't had rain here for a while, and the farmers in the area do need the rain. It would have been much nicer if we had a clear, beautiful, hot, sunny day of around about 20 degrees, which it has been in the last few weeks. But we still had a wonderful, wonderful day. I must explain to you, and this is also quoting Eli Aaron, which we will introduce him soon, the deputy mayor. Out of 1,500 rockets or so that will send to this area, 580 were in this specific region. Up until 4.5 kilometers, all the settlements have been bomb shelter proofed by the government. It has already, all of them have got bomb shelters, but after 4.5 kilometers, people don't have. The newer houses, yes, maybe they do. My house was built in 1973, which was just before the Yom Kippur War. So it is solid concrete, and the walls are 30 centimeters thick, as well as the roof. So we are safe in our house. Thank God for the last 3 weeks, it has been very, very quiet. And if we have heard a helicopter here or there, you kind of jump up to see, what's going on. Is the ceasefire still in force? Has the ceasefire finished? You're kind of edgy in another way. Not in a scary way, but more on edge to see what is happening or what may happen. We went through a really, really difficult time here. You can just imagine we were in bomb shelters virtually day and night, red alert, and just booms and helicopters and planes, and you just didn't know whether you were coming or going. It was not pleasant. But as I said, we could be in a completely different time zone at the moment because it is very quiet. There were a couple of Apache helicopters flying around the other day. But other than that, in the last 3 weeks, besides the IDF training in the area, it has been very, very quiet.
Okay, I think we have a couple of questions here for you to get started, Candy, as we go through this. CJ, you have a question for Candy?
Yeah, my first question goes to the rearming of Hamas after the so-called war. What can Israel be doing to thwart the rearming of Hamas right now? Are they going to be stopping ships, shutting down tunnels, tracking arms coming from the rest of the world, or how is that working? What's the plan?
I think that Mark should answer that question. It's a very, very good question. With the ceasefire, obviously we are trying our hardest not to break the ceasefire. So there won't be any bombing of tunnels. I think they can stop from the sea coming in, but not much, really. Not much. But I'll pass you over also to Mark, and Mark can also answer that. Carry on with the...
Yeah, we've got elections coming up in next month here, and Candy hosted, and she has some friends visiting. And as the saying goes in the States, I think you have life a little bit easier, if not complicated, but surely easier in elections. You have 2.5 political parties to vote for, meaning Republican, Democratic, and maybe an independent. In Israel, we've got 32 or 36 different political parties. So the choice is so vast and so confusing. And I'm going to lead with the Deputy Mayor Arnon, who's with us here. He can hear and he can... Eli.
Hey, Mark, before you go any further, Mark, just tilt your camera up a little bit. We see your mouth and your nose, but we cannot see your eyes. Just tilt it up a little bit.
Oh, I know I got a big mouth. No, is that better now?
There you go. There you go. That's good. Yeah, we want all the Americans to see your handsome face.
An exhausted, handsome face.
Hey, Mark has a question. Mark has a question for you, Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
On your behind-the-scenes security tour that you run, one of the biggest things that impressed me was holding the Katyusha rockets in our hands and knowing what's inside of them. Has your group done that yet? And do you have any reactions from the people who have done that?
Well, yeah, we did that today in the rain. Everybody got their hands dirty, and I'm sorry for being a little bit ironic, but metal rusts, and everybody touched and I think felt the remains of the Qassam and the Grad rockets, and yeah, they got their hands a little bit dirty from those things today. So we've been and we've seen, and I think I can probably, just from what I judge by profiling people's faces and facial reactions, I think it's a bit overwhelming to understand that what they saw.
Oops, we just lost him.
Okay.
Lost audio there, Mark.
No, we lost Mark.
Okay, well, you get him back, and we'll explain what's going on. We have the G42 Trento satellite. It's powered by 17 squirrels who are fed peanuts.
No. It's not our satellite. It's on their end because they've had rain, because they're so used to not having rain. Whenever they get rain, they start having electrical problems, and
thank God it's not our satellite.
It's not our squirrels, it's theirs.
It's Israeli squirrels.
It's the Israeli squirrels on their side.
Yeah.
And we may lose the signal here and there, but we're cutting edge here at TrentoVision.tv 20 minutes after
He's back.
3 o'clock. And if you want to speak to a bunch of national security people in Israel, you can give us a call at 888-565-1470 as we walk through this national security briefing that Mark Kohlberg of Mark Kohlberg Consultants put together. And we're getting a briefing right now from a couple of kilometers outside off the border of Gaza. And if you're in Israel, like we were back in February, you literally could stand at a fence, and there's sort of a no man's land, a couple hundred yards, and that's sort of a demilitarized zone. And then right 100 yards away is Gaza, and 200 yards away are homes. That if somebody had a rifle, when we were standing there, I didn't feel real comfortable. Would have been an easy shot by a bad sniper to knock us off. That wasn't too much fun. But they're about 2 or 3 kilometers away, a mile and a half or so. But Candy did say she was in the bomb, the area where the bombs were coming.
Yeah, 1,500 that they had. Can you imagine that 1,500 bombs coming down on you from Miami? I mean, what? And these rockets, I was asking him to describe to me. I mean, they're about as tall as I am, about 6 feet long, and they're filled with nails. Washers.
About 6 inches in diameter.
Yeah, filled with water. I mean, and they're not pinpoint accuracy type. They just launch them like a bottle rocket, from the Gaza side, and they don't care where it hits. Indiscriminate, and they hope they kill civilians. And that's insanity.
And the whole doctrine of international law as it relates to war, and we do have doctrines of international law as it relates to warfare. You're not supposed to target civilians. You're not supposed to do that.
Well, unless you're Palestinian.
There are excuses. Well, we don't have a guidance system.
Yeah,
that's
arm
good.
us better,
Okay.
and we'll
And give
be
us
more
better guidance, and
accurate.
we'll
We'll be more accurate in our bombing.
Yeah, Obama, more money for our guidance for our Qassams, okay? And they're loaded with nails and all this stuff. And CJ, in our trip there, one of the evenings we went to Israel One. Was that the name of it? I think it was Israel One. It was a.
All right, we have Mark back.
And I'll tell you about this because there was an 18-year-old kid with no leg that 6 months earlier got hit by one of these rockets.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was really very moving. We have the whole video. Okay, we have Mark Kohlberg and his delegation. Mark is an Israeli living in Israel. He comes back and forth to the United States. He comes into the States to work in his security work. He briefs police departments, law enforcement, private entities on security. And then he has this briefing that American law enforcement personnel go over to Israel and then go up and down the country behind the scenes. And we are fortunate enough today, right now, on TrentoVision.tv to get a briefing from Mark and his delegation just a mile or two off the Gaza border. Okay, we got you back, Mark. What's up?
Okay, well, we were talking to ourselves for a while there. We lost communication. Where were we, Tom?
You were starting to explain the rockets that were coming in and whether or not the Israel has a capability to keep the Hamas from rearming.
It's a good question again, but to keep them from rearming, as I'm going to just basically say what the deputy mayor told us is that he gives it about a year. It's optimistic. If this ceasefire will last for a year, I think a lot of people will be very happy.
So did this particular type of ceasefire, was that a result of Morsi's interjection, or was it more as a result of Israel just pinpointing, targeting, and just knocking out the leadership and everything else?
I think your question, Mark, is a political question. And just this evening, being hosted here at Candy's place, we've had a round table of political opinions coming from left to center to right, and everybody's got a different opinion about different things. But on a personal level, if you ask me if Morsi had anything to do with stopping the rocket and missile fire into Israel, I think yes. I think it was a pre-planned, premeditated, staged act that a new Egyptian president, who is part of the Muslim Brotherhood, was given the opportunity to play a role in bringing together a ceasefire. So, yeah, I think things behind the scenes, as we call them, are being played out firstly on a political role, and then human life comes only second.
Hey, Mark, it's Tom again. What was the feel, and if your delegation, if they can weigh in too, what was the feel in Israel when Morsi, President Morsi, by the way, he was educated in California at the University of Southern California. He graduated. He was there from 78 to 82, graduated with a PhD, then taught in the United States. What was the feel when he went back from the negotiations to Egypt, and the next day, Thanksgiving Day, he declared himself Pharaoh for life, basically? What was the vibe, the feel, the thinking of everyone in Israel as to what he just did?
It's a very difficult question because I personally, and maybe we can ask Candy as well, but I personally really didn't take notice too much of that. For me, 6 of one is half a dozen of another. And the writing's on the wall, and you can read the writing, and in between the lines, let's maybe ask Candy if it had an effect on her, because she's so close to the Egyptian border.
Quite frankly, I think it was a big joke. Not that this is a laughing matter at all, but he did. As Mark said, he made himself a king. And it seems like we've got in the Arab world some sort of a pattern all over again of dictatorship. And that's one of the problems, and that is why there's demonstrations again on the square. The people also are not happy with his decision and all of his decisions of making himself king, ruler, pharaoh, dictator. We have not felt it over here in Israel unless you listen to the news. I don't put the news on a lot. MTV is on a lot of the time. It releases the stress and the tension.
There you go. For breaking news, the Israelis are watching MTV broadcast from the United States.
Right.
Well, we are following it very, very closely here in the United States. The United West, our organization, our Team B, Sharia, the threat to America, all of us are following it extremely closely. And it looks very well that Morsi, he's now split the vote. And the reason we're following it is because we see, Israel in the center of the targeting of another enemy. Morsi split the vote. This coming Saturday will be the first part of the vote. Then he split it to the 22nd. And all of the analysts we work with see it as a fait accompli. The Egyptians are going to approve the Sharia-compliant constitution, and that means very bad stuff for the nation of Israel. There's no two ways about it. And right now we're starting to mount a campaign because in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we're delivering 20 F-16s. The United States is delivering 20 F-16s to a guy who is a mortal enemy of Israel. He said this historically. He said it in the run-up to the election. And now if he gets the approval of the country, this isn't good for where you guys are sitting because the Qassams are dangerous. But an F-16 in the hands of an Egyptian is a little more dangerous. So, CJ, you had a question?
Yeah, actually, we had a question come in from a caller. We have a couple here. The caller wants to know, for Candy, do the kibbutzes near Gaza still support land for peace? The whole land for peace concept. He says in his experience they did in the past, and he wants to know since the Gaza disengagement and all the trouble on the border there that you've had since 2005, are the people who live in the area still supporting land for peace?
I think the feelings are very, very mixed. As Mark did mention, we've got quite a few people over here, and it's left, right, and center. But what has happened to a lot of the people that live on the kibbutz, and they are mainly on the border with Gaza, a lot of their agricultural land has been taken over by the government for IDF purposes. It's a sort of a 5-kilometer no man's land.
Right.
And, that's taking away the livelihood of the kibbutz. But the government has not compensated them at all for taking that land. We don't really own our land over here in Israel. You lease it for a period of 100 years.
Right.
And the government can basically come in and say, okay, from now on, and 5 kilometers of land of agricultural produce, I don't need to tell you that can feed
That's
a
quite
hell of
significant.
a lot of people. But you've just got no option. The government or the IDF say, I want, and you have to give. So in that way, it has, I think we are giving land for peace.
Okay. That's a good way of looking at it.
Yes.
What's that?
Disengagement with interest, Mark said.
Oh, right.
Oh, boy.
Okay, we also have a caller on the line. Do you want to
Yeah, let's try it. We're going to try to take a caller. We may have to repeat the question, so
okay. All right. We have Judah on the line. Judah, are you with us?
Yes.
Hi, thanks for calling.
You're welcome. Good afternoon to all of you. Let me preface my question by saying that according to Professor Louis Rene Beres of Purdue University, an expert in international law, as well as some other experts in international law, international law is not a suicide pact.
I sent you both.
All right? Now, since the signing of Oslo in 1993, we have over 2,000 Israeli dead, 15,000 casualties, both Jewish and non-Jewish. And still, this thing keeps on going. And here's my question, based upon what I just said. The Israeli, if you look at Clausewitz and some other, and Sun Tzu, we see that no war can ever be won except by a ground war, and we have to make the enemy see that their civilian population is suffering as much as the injury that they inflict upon a democratic civilian population. So here's my question. Did not this 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, did not Israel miss a good opportunity by not launching, it did not miss a good opportunity, by not launching a ground war that would annihilate the enemy and at the same time dismantle the PLO, PA, and that's my question to you all.
Okay, thank you, Judah.
All right, excellent question, and it's been on the hearts, minds, and lips of many, many Americans. Yeah. Yet 70,000 supposedly Israeli troops called up on the border. All the equipment was out. Everything was a green light, and you stopped. What took place, Mark, Candy, and anyone else that can help us understand that?
I think Trump strategically. First of all, just to correct the caller, I don't think the PLO had much to do with the shooting of the missiles and the rockets 3 weeks ago. I think he's confused with the Hamas. Yeah. But no, I think most Israelis are pretty much content that the ground forces never went in. Our mission strategically was to stop the terrorists from firing rockets and missiles at us. And that was accomplished. And I think that at the moment, that's probably the best way to do things, because no Israeli wants their son or daughter in the military to come home in a body bag. And what we managed to do by air, I think, was to take out a lot of their weapons, a lot of their ammo dumps. And yes, unfortunately, in a war, there are sometimes civilian casualties, but these were extremely minimal civilian casualties, where we targeted strategic terror infrastructures or weapons, whereas they fired randomly at our civilians. So if I can just answer that question very briefly, is I think they are feeling now, 3 weeks later, that they were probably mistaken to do what they did. Hopefully this will go a long, long time, more than the year that the deputy mayor of the Eshkol region says, but I'm again not optimistic, and I doubt it. What I'd like to ask, Tom, if we've got Fred Perry here and Barbara Dormat, perhaps as Americans you'd like to pose a couple of questions to them while they're sitting here on the border with Gaza.
Absolutely, sure. Let's bring them on.
Well, it's Fred.
Fred Perry. Hello, Fred. You live 10 minutes from where I'm sitting, and I'm talking to you 7,000 miles away. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And I found in my refrigerator tonight a bottle of Donald Trump vodka. So 10 minutes from your house, and I flew to Israel to taste my first Donald Trump vodka.
I didn't know Donald was expanding his empire, We'll have to let him know for sure. So, yeah, you've been out there several times now. What struck you on this trip? Anything uniquely?
There are a lot, quite frankly, and I'll leave the much of it to your discussion with Mark in terms of some of the more strategic and tactical aspects. a couple of things that I came here in terms of bringing a perspective with me was that of being on the Broward Sheriff's Advisory Council, and at the same time being a recent past chairman of the Boys and Girls Clubs in Broward County. And a couple of things I thought are worth passing along to your audience. Today I went to a daycare center. It was described as a daycare center, but for your audience, I would describe it more as a Boys and Girls Club. It had more of that feel to it. And it's in the town of Sderot, and it's completely bomb-proof. Let that sink in. 900,000 square feet of poured concrete for a building that on the outside is very nondescript. It's in an industrial warehouse district. And it's the only place in a city of, if anybody wants to tell me the population? 25,000 people? 25 to 35,000 people, so perhaps the size of Coral Springs. The only place that the children can actually play, because they're not allowed to play outdoors. They're not allowed to, let me rephrase, when there's a birthday party, the parents don't want to send their child to another child's house for a birthday party because they don't want to lose sight of them, because these missiles are coming in. Sderot is receiving 8,000 missiles in a year. You talked about this earlier, holding these Qassam rockets. And one of the interesting things in the daycare center today, two things. One was it was a day of respite for the soldiers of the Southern Brigade of Gaza. And the soldiers were there with their families, very young wives, small children. And interestingly for me, it was the Givati Brigade, which is equivalent to the Marines. It's Israel's Marines. And they were brought back from the line to spend a day with their family and their children in the safety of this building. While the building is generally bomb-proofed, when the air raid sirens go off and you have about 15 seconds to get to a shelter, there are extra hardened shelters within this large building. Think of a gymnasium and a Boys and Girls Club or a YMCA. There's a rock climbing wall on the side. And I noticed that the rock climbing wall was only, and I want your listeners, if they're multitasking, to please stop and listen to this. The rock climbing wall was only about 8 feet high. And so, I asked the question, I'm thinking to myself, geez, our rock climbing walls are 5 times higher than this. So I said, why is the rock climbing wall only 8 feet high? Well, because a taller rock climbing wall requires the child to be in a harness for safety. And the problem with the harness, while safe on a rock climbing wall, it takes too long to get out of for when the siren goes off. And the siren goes off and gives you 15 to 20 seconds warning of a missile dropping in your neighborhood. So let that sink in. Think of a Boys and Girls Club in Fort Lauderdale who has to have a shortened rock climbing wall because it takes too long to get out of the harness to hit the shelter. And the only other thing that I would like to add to that is I learned 2 very important phrases for an American traveling in Israel. One was nochov, if I pronounce that correctly, which means ketchup. And the second, probably slightly more important, was Seva Adom. And when you hear Seva Adom on the speakers surrounding you, whether you're in Tel Aviv or Sderot, Seva Adom means code red. It means start running and keep up with the person in front of you because they know where the shelter is. And I'll open it up to any questions of either myself or any of the other of the delegation here.
Okay, great, Fred. Mark Campbell has a question.
Yeah, I was noticing, even you're talking about the schools. Well, even the bus stops are bomb shelters because you only have 15 seconds. And, by the time I'm finished talking here, that's how much time you have to actually get to the bomb shelter, and it's just a mentality, and then that's what I'm kind of wondering is why they don't go in and actually take out, the placements by force.
You're breaking up, Mark. We can't hear you.
Yeah, you gotta hold that.
Yeah, I was wondering, the 15 seconds to the bomb shelters.
Closer.
Okay, I'll just pass it off. Go ahead.
His question.
We just lost him.
Lost in the whole signal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that backside is.
They're calling back.
All right. Okay, we're another technical little tiny glitch. They're calling back right now. Mark Campbell's question. The context of his question was that even not just in this big building, which is a boys and girls club, but in the everyday life of the Sderot people. Sderot is a border town. It's like Delray and Boca. Boca is Gaza, Delray is Sderot. It's a border town, and Mark was saying in the everyday life, when that 15 seconds, when the siren goes off, you got 15 seconds before it goes, boom.
Yeah.
And the bus stops are hardened little bomb shelters that we went into.
Right.
That
So if
were,
you're trapped on the street,
you just
and
go,
can't get
you run
anywhere,
in.
you just go. Yeah,
it's crazy
yeah.
stuff.
I think it sounds more to me like some of the really small border towns that I've been to in Arizona and Texas and New Mexico.
Yes, it is like that. It's a lot like that.
That it's a lot like that, where you just feel really like you're in a completely different country. You don't even feel like you're in the United States at all, and it seems to me like Israel treats these towns like Sderot as almost like not even part of Israel, really, because they let thousands and thousands and thousands of rockets land on them the whole year until one of them reaches Jerusalem or Tel Aviv. Nobody does anything about it.
Yeah, it is. That was one of the frustrations we had, the accommodation to life under bombs. I mean, I don't understand it. And I wonder if during this ceasefire, if rockets are landing in Sderot, is Israel going to treat that as a violation of the ceasefire, or does one of them have to hit Tel Aviv? No, what I heard coming out of Netanyahu and the administration,
right?
The Israeli administration,
right.
not the
Obama, American
administration.
Yeah.
Any rockets fired anywhere, and the ceasefire. The hudna. It's really a hudna.
It's a hudna. Yeah.
A Muslim scam to rearm is what it is.
Yeah.
Mark.
And you brought up a good point, CJ. Is just like the red-headed stepchild, of Israel. I mean, it's like, so sterile, gets a few thousand, 10,000 bombs dropped on it.
10,000.
It's like, I mean, how many bombs? Can you imagine if they were like doing that to Key West, and you're like, oh well, those just Key West. Don't worry about that. They're not really part of the Florida per se or United States. They're just there, so we're not going to really count that.
Yeah. How many rockets would have to land in Bisbee, Arizona before the United States government decided that they would let the state of Arizona actually defend itself?
I know. It's craziness. It's craziness. But
now I wonder, are the residents of Sderot individually, are they armed?
I don't know that, but we do know that the side of the building facing Gaza, which is the eastern wall, the eastern wall of their homes, have to be fortified, and the government pays for the fortification. So the bomb shelter component, the wall is hardened. Then there's a bomb shelter room put in the home.
Right.
And I think it was something like $40,000 per house.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's incredible that money. Every house.
Every house was getting it. And walking down the street, and you see the construction, and they're putting it up.
Well, I've watched House Hunters on TV here, where they've, House Hunters goes to Tel Aviv, and you see these rich girls looking for their $500,000 condos. And one of the first things that they look for is they want to know what the bomb shelter room looks like.
Or it looks like we got Mark back again.
They want to know what the fortification is like.
Hey, Mark, I got a question for you for Candy. Is Sderot kind of like the redheaded stepchild of Israel that, oh, well, we can just let bombs come down on them. Unless they hit Tel Aviv, we're not really going to get serious. Is that the mentality? Why is just, you can just launch thousands of rockets at Sderot and nobody cares?
You feel that it doesn't matter if they come here, but it matters if they go to Texas.
As soon as the bombs, I mean, this is also why it's been carrying on for so long, because it's only been in our little area over here. And we're talking about, in our area, there are 12,000 people. Let's say 7 kilometers, there are about 60, 70,000 people. But as soon as you get closer to Tel Aviv, you're talking about a few million. So, of course, it makes a difference. And that is why it's been carrying on for 12 years, is because it has only been in this area. And through luck, and luck only, we have had injuries, we have had people killed. But if the same thing would have happened in Tel Aviv, there would have been hundreds of injuries and who knows how many killed. So, yes, Tel Aviv and Jerusalem as well, or any big city, Beersheba.
Right.
Beersheba was in a total panic.
Hey, Candy, this is Tom. You manage an operation called the Negev Experience. What is the Negev and what is the Negev Experience?
Okay. The Negev is the Negev Desert, which is the northern part of Israel. And the reason why I'm calling it an experience is because I have a B&B set up over here on my farm. It's only in the making, it's only in the beginning, but what I do is I do tours all around the area and especially on the border. I took the group today within 2 kilometers of the border with Gaza, where we could actually see buildings and houses and the Dania airport. One of the interesting questions over there was, does the airport work? Now, I know Shimon Peres and a few other people were talking about the new Middle East and opening up the Dania airport, and we could have a lot of collaboration with our neighbors, and we have had in the past. We are all praying. Believe me, I think that there would be about 90% of the people in this area who are praying that it would go back to the way it was, where we used to go shopping in Rafiach, and when we used to go eat hummus or and they used to work over here. We used to visit over there. We used to go for weddings and celebrations. We also went right onto the border. I'm 15 kilometers away from the border with Egypt. So, we right down in the corner, and I am trying, and it started out because I wanted to get the word out there. And I think the best way for me to do that is to use my farm, to use my hospitality, to bring people over here, try and keep up the standards of a decent, nice luxury with jacuzzi and all the amenities, but mainly to show them where we are and just how close we are to the border. People don't realize that, you can see the neighbors. They're right over there. They're just over the hill.
The neighbors that want the neighbors that.
And I need to just interrupt as I normally do. When Candy says in a city like Beersheba, hang on 1 second. I'm gonna give you Candy's husband.
I heard something earlier. We were in Beersheba one day, coming out of Beersheba for dinner, and they don't say Sever Adon. Basically, you have a siren as if war had broken out. And when I tell you, the whole city stops, everybody gets out of their car in the middle of the street and lays down on the floor and hopes and prays that a rocket falls on them. Can you imagine New York City coming to a stop. It's just people don't realize. I'm sorry, I just heard that earlier.
No, it's good.
Sorry, that's
No.
his name is also Fred Minsky, and
Hi, Fred.
he's also from originally New York, but also a Florida boy. He did remind me of something very interesting, that one day when we were in Beersheba and we heard the sirens going, and the kids were in the car, and the kids made us stop the car, and we looked for the closest building, and we just went into the closest building and stood downstairs until the sirens and everything quietened down. Even for us, it was totally weird and very, very scary and unacceptable.
Tom,
Hey, Mark, hang on one second. Unfortunately, we are just about out of time. This hour went very quickly. Now we can hold you guys over. We have to take a break in a couple of minutes, and it's about a 6 or 7 minute break, and then we'd love to have you guys stay in. What's your schedule like? Can you stay with us?
Tom, if it's 6 to 7 minutes, we're staying. We've got to wake up really early, like in about 2 hours from now. A little bit more than that, but it seems like 2 hours. But I'd like to use. We'll stick around for 6 minutes. I want you to speak to Barbara.
No. We have about 1 minute left in this segment. Then we have a 6 minute break.
Yeah.
And then we can bring you back on in about 8 minutes.
Okay. So just Barbara.
What's that?
Hi.
Yes.
All right, let me. We're going to put you guys on hold. We're going to take a short break. We'll come back and then we'll finish up because you're leaving us. You have a cliffhanger
more
here.
Questions. Yeah.
Yeah, with more questions.
Yeah.
So you guys stay with us. This is so put them on hold. And we're going to take a short break. We have to take a break. Tom Trento, TrentoVision.tv. I'm here with CJ, with Mike, with Mark. We got Joe back in the booth. We have our satellite up, and we're broadcasting live they're broadcasting from an area close to Gaza in Israel, giving us an inside briefing on what life is like right now, what it's been like over the past 3 weeks after the war against Gaza. We're going to come back, look at what's going on in the Sinai in Egypt, what Kamal Marshall, the head of the Hamas, came back from Qatar and held a big rally that they're going to destroy and push Israel out. The Gazans believe they won the war. But we're going to get an inside look at all of this. We'll be right back in just a few minutes.